And Ivlon says yes. A very... Yes, I can. But will I? Well, I'm on the edge of my seat, Ivlon. One of the biggest that people seem to have trouble wrapping their mind around is that it challenged the player's skill and imagination in how they played the game and not the character's skills. Originally, there was no trap finding skill. It was up to you as the player to find ways to figure out how to find traps. Ah. Well, I don't know. I think you could find a modern audience for this if you set that as the expectation. You know, we talked about having a campaign primer yesterday. If that is a part of the session 0, the campaign primer, if that is an expectation that, you know, you load into the game before the game begins, that could get people thinking in this OSR style mode. Same page tool. And if any of you don't know, OSR is old school Renaissance. For folks who do think back to ye olde days of, you know, kind of fuzzy blue lined graph paper on, you know, or like fuzzy blue lined, graph paper on, you know, before all of these nice fancy schmancy special printed vinyl mats and, you know, full color illustrations and big, you know, high budget art pieces, when it was just some people kind of doing sketches for the adventures and the like. So Ivlon said, yeah, I love the blue maps. And do you know why they're blue? Offhand, I don't know. Like why blue is printed? Maybe because it's kind of it's an inoffensive color. And it's more readily viewable than red lines if people are colorblind. It could even just be that blue ink was cheaper, and so you printed with blue ink. Like that's why so much stuff is pink in The Simpsons. If you want to look at that sort of stuff, pink was not a commonly used color, and so you could buy pink, like pink ink, very inexpensively. And so when you're just starting out making a cartoon and you're given like a certain exploratory budget, to save money, you bought the cheaper ink. And so that's why there's a lot of pink stuff in The Simpsons. It was a copy protection thing. If you tried to photocopy them, it would screw up the machine and you'd get a full black page. Ah. Well then. See, we're learning history. I love it. Y'all like it. Y'all love it. You need it. See, so this has been your OSR moment with your DM, Ivlon. I just need some fancy music in the background playing. You know, Ivlon is in like a very oversized, comfortable like executive leather chair by a fireplace. You know, a pipe that blows bubbles. Just, you know, oh yes, welcome to OSR Theater. I am your host, Ivlon, and I'm here to inform you about how things used to be back in the day. Now, travel with me through the imagination, or through the conduit of imagination, as I take you back into what used to be, in order to see how we are now. Back on topic, I think it was 1 to 17 is an ugly range. Well then, Ivlon, step up, senpai. Step up, DM senpai. How would you want to approach this? I'm open. I randomly chose 1 to 17. I'm fine. If you would want to start this kind of open adventure, this, you know, sandbox timeline style adventure, what would you do? I was looking at Discord and saw someone asking about how to make V from the movie as a character, and I was like, well, a CEO of a megacorp would need a badass bodyguard. Oh, see? Great inspiration, Blargle. That's awesome. And Ivlon is totally going to make an OSR theater. Do it, Ivlon. First, I'd start with figuring out what the adventure is supposed to be about. Ultimately, Ivlon, the adventure Oh, Diadems is coming in with the howdy. You have to get going. All right, Emmy. Hey, thanks for hanging out. I hope you made good progress. If you have any photos of your mini, please share it. Please throw it up on our Discord. I'd love to see the progress on that. And by the way, everyone, Emmy Illustrates does broadcast art. And so, Emmy, you're welcome to put a link up to your channel as well if you'd like. So yes, Evelyn, the story that is ultimately going to be presented. So this is us as DMs. Like, we're having DM to DM collusion here. Thank you for sharing that, Emmy. And if you want to say any notes about, what you stream or when, and of course, you can always post it on our Discord when you do stream. But yeah, for those of you who are other broadcasters and creators, you're welcome to, let's network together. Let's try and help each other out. Get eyeballs on each other's channels. Easy follow, sold out, says Blargle. One second here. There we go. Yes, well, my channel won't be active much until April, but the idea is that we want to start a smaller window for an adventure. I have the entire B series. What I really want to do, or what I really want to start with, is the Judges Guild modules for 0 edition. I have not heard of that. Ivlon, you are deep diving into stuff that, it personally interests me. I'd love to see the history of this. We primarily work in 5th edition. We might reference 4th or even 3rd. But I've never played 2nd or 1st, or let alone 0th. So Ivlon, that could be a very interesting niche for you to hit on your channel. Because I don't know if there's a lot of OSR stuff in this corner of Twitch. I mean, it's that you could see some interesting growth there. Depending on the days and times you want to broadcast, I think you could hit that niche pretty hard. So the, Ivlon, because you had asked, well, what's it about? Ultimately, from DM to DM, it is about the threat of this beholder godling being reborn into Lomosh and turning the upper, or I guess the lower part of the peninsula here, into the same desert that it did so long ago that created the Lomosh Dunes. And how that happens is that there are 2 eyes that have been buried away. The eyes had been found by NPCs. One has, by interacting with the eye, the one has already turned into a humanoid beholder, as it has taken over his mind and his thoughts, and is compelling him. Think like Ghostbusters, right? Are you the keymaster? Are you the gatekeeper? Kind of a thing. And so the second eye has been found and has started to mutate the NPC. And so there's a countdown timer going on as she's making her way throughout the Lomosh dunes to eventually end up in the temple here to rebirth this beholder. Or if not meet here, then to meet somewhere, maybe in the ruins at the original site out here. And this could offer big clues to rebirth this beholder with the other person. And then that beholder is going to take some time to float across the lands up here, establish itself as like an eye of providence atop this like restructured, this refurbished ziggurat or pyramid. And then it's going to drop a petrification spell and a shatter spell that is going to turn this whole area into desert like it did the southern part of the Lomosh dunes. Now, there's also a subplot going on with another villain, quote-unquote, who is more of, I guess, the thorn in the side and is a personal target for one of the PCs. However, that character could maybe be reformed. That character could just be defeated. That character might be able to offer information or resources and be more of an antagonist than a straight-up murderous villain. Especially because this villain, I mean, kind of universally as we're referring to it, this villain actually has the hots for one of the player characters. And so she might view the others as, kind of rivals in a sense, or she doesn't want them around because they're only going to get in the way of her adoration for this other player character. Okay, so you're thinking that a story like this would just be between levels 5 and 10? I'm fine with that. In that case, I'd want to think up in a world where the PCs can go anywhere. If they're not going to just grind random encounters on the coast with pirates, what would be our milestones? Would it be reaching, if they start here in Lower Lomosh, if the initial story takes them around the coast or encourages them to take the coast, would we say that their 5 to 6 milestone can be from exploration, random encounters? I mean, the random encounters would be thematic if we wanted to create that here, because a map like this, I think, would work well with a random encounter chart that we've specifically curated. Could it be, even, if we start out, it could be catching up with the NPC? Right, so if we make it one of these things, then we can say, all right, so after, I don't know, if you all end up having 5 random encounters, or you have explored the coast, or you've caught up with the NPC because you make a beeline. You see, we have to kind of think, how could the party act? What could the party do? Because exploration doesn't mean we go from Lower Lomosh to Findu. Exploration could be they hop on a riverboat, and what if they decide to go explore? Because 2 of them are Dragonborns, and one of them has a noble family that had holdings out here that were taken over. Pardon me. So to keep it a little open-ended, to discover, like, what should they discover? What should they encounter? What could be a goal that would allow them to understand more of the world as we build up to the climax of this beholder being born, being set loose on the world, and then it's this kind of race to the pyramid before it can set up shop at the top of the pyramid and blast the peninsula into nothing, into dust and bones and dust and You know, we're looking like the Terminator post-apocalyptic hellscape. I don't like labeling the milestones by level, but rather by plots. That way they hit a milestone that isn't the one you had in mind, they can still level up. That's a way of doing it too. Yeah, Ivalon. So if we just want to say then, so we have the 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. So we can call this first milestone. Or, I don't know, milestone 1. Milestone 2. These don't have to be in order. These are simply the 5 milestones that are going to get the adventurers to the plot. Milestone 3, Milestone 4, and Milestone 5. And then, of course, we have our big climax, like our big battle. If somehow it didn't get curtailed before then, although I think ending the campaign on a race, because even if they kill the villain or they kill the NPC, and this thing can't be reborn, you know, if one of them doesn't take the eye and convert themselves or whatever, it can turn into a race and then a final battle. It's not necessarily a milestone, or the end of the game, I guess, is a milestone. Like, one of them is obviously going to be the beholder reaching that shrine or whatever. Sure. So if we think about it in an order that maybe makes sense to us in a normal plot progression, you know, if everyone played by what we were hoping, you know, they followed the carrots, we could do something along those lines. So milestone 5 could be the beholder godling is born and escapes to the refurbished cult temple. One of these milestones is going to be the outdoor desert. Like there's an indoor desert. The outdoor dungeon that we made. And that was actually more in the desert down here, because you can find a lot of clues about what happened in the Lomosh dunes that people wouldn't do otherwise, but because we have this outdoor dungeon with a certain set of goals. You know, we could put that here with the completion of the outdoor dungeon. Yeah, so Ivalon, I'll find it for you. Some of the prompting here. In order to win a bet or complete a rite of passage by surviving in the dungeon for a certain amount of time. So they are going to be sent out by a local ruler. This is a monarchy, but it could just be like, I don't know, the mayor of Findu said that I'll provide aid if you show your strength. And to do that, you have to spend 10 days in the desert. You know, and you have to come back with... a piece of, I don't know, something with the old writing, like an equivalent of, like, Aramaic or Sanskrit or something. That, because there's all sorts of ruins out here, and for a particular reason. The players may not know it, but this used to be a very populated area before this beholder, like this weapon, this bioweapon, manifested and petrified and shattered everything, so that the sand is the bones of the people. The sand is the very, you know, the roads and the cattle and the children and the mountains. You know, so there's some fractured mountains that exist out here. But the sand is everything that existed before this weapon went off. Like almost like a magical nuclear device, except it had like a mass petrify and then a mass shatter effect that dusted everything, turning it into a desert. And so that's what's potentially going to happen up here. But, you know, in history, people just know that there was this great being that had, you know, this eye, you know, all the eyes. It was great. It was all seeing. It was ancient, and the people seemingly venerated it. And so this new, you know, the survivors or whatever, the survivors just passed on that there's this great being. They don't know that it was a weapon. They don't know that it actually is going to destroy them if it gets to do what it wants to do. Well, ultimately, if the NPCs or the villains are left alone, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen after X amount of days. And so the concept is, Ivalon, that there is there's a pressure because they want to save their friend. Like, that's the initial hook. They know this NPC. You know, she's out there. She's struggling. She's slowly turning into this sort of humanoid beholder style thing. So to find her or to get information about what's going on, of course, there's this foil that's out there that can be slowing them down. There's also sort of political intrigue and upheaval because the Dragonborn have rerouted the river to create this sort of, you know, gated community for themselves, and it's causing famine, and it's also causing unrest between the humans and the Dragonborn. And so there's just a timeline for things that, you know, it's all seemingly reaching this this critical mass, this boiling point. And ultimately, by taking care of these beholders, they're learning about the past, the history. They're learning that perhaps a similar conflict is what led to the creation of this weapon. And so by peace and unification, and by the application of skills not for selfish reasons, but to benefit, you know, society, you know, whatever touchy-feely moral or value we want to include, you know, that is going to be the lesson learned in this. Or the player characters are going to die along the way. Unless they just get in a boat and just like sail away, like right off the map. And then, you know, about 2 months later, they hear that everything and everyone was destroyed in their homelands. But look, hey, who's to stop them from doing that? So the dungeon can have its own villain or boss that we can tie into the story. But ultimately, you know, they're going to get clues about things that have happened out here. You know, through the portal opening, through finding, you know, another piece of stone, kind of like a Rosetta Stone that has, you know, translations or shows that particular things have happened. Maybe they talked to outsiders who moved away in south and were just conveniently passing through the desert. And so when they compare the outsiders' lore to what they've been told, they'll find that there's discrepancies. And what do you do? How do you handle that? In that case, I believe one of the milestones should be finding that NPC. Yeah, because she left the capital because she couldn't stay in the library any longer because of the mutations that have been slowly taking place. And now she's sort of in this, I can't hold it back any longer. I can't wear makeup. I can't, you know, come in every day with a different headdress that I just suddenly started wearing without people asking questions. And so she's taking a sabbatical, in a sense. And she's wandering because as a scholar herself, she thinks that she can find answers, and she hopes to be able to do so on this tour of Lomosh before the end comes for her, and she fully like reverts to whatever this thing is changing her into. It looks like a dolphin, partly on accident, and then a little bit more on purpose, because as we were talking with Shlomo at the time, he uses a lot of dolphin emoji, and as it kind of already started to look like that, I figured, well, let's add some mountains. One looks like a fin, and we're gonna put this we're gonna put this fiendish temple right here as an eye. And then of course we're gonna have the capital be like it's a blowhole. Because it kind of worked out that way, and because Shlomo was offering a lot of insight, like he lives in Israel, and this area we're basing off of the Arabian Peninsula with some Egyptian influence, because that's North Africa. And so he was able to offer a lot of insight. And so when we're coming up with a name, what do we call it? I figured I'd call it Lomosh. So, you know, here we have Shlomo for Shlomo, but I just called it Lomosh by rearranging a couple of the words. So it's a fun way to say thank you to someone who contributed a lot to the project. I've done this on purpose. Ba-dum bum ba-dum ba-dum bum ba-dum ba-dum bum ba-dum bow. Oh, the guitar shape? Oh yeah, that was Magic Musica. Magic Musica was the campaign name, and it had a bunch of floating islands that looked like musical notes, and like music and such was it was a part of the culture, and it was ingrained into it. And then of course we had the guitar shaped lake that had like the little rivers coming off of it that looked like musical bars and all that other stuff. My DM told me that based on the backstory I've written so far, my character would essentially be the director of the CIA in one of the nations of his world. That's a pretty lofty title, Orc. You got to step up and do, and you also got to work on black bagging people, right? So another milestone I think would be the resolution of the sort of the sub-boss of the foil. Resolution of the halfling antagonist. And the first two, again, could be something broader. It could honestly be visit 3 other major locales. If we trust ourselves as DMs to provide clues, because we have an idea of what exists where, if the party is going to 3 other locales, whatever it is, it could be Risha, Findu, and then they explore this interior forest inside this kind of like valley that produces prodigious amounts of fresh water for some reason. That could be 3. Or they want to go from Lower Lomosh down the river, and they encounter you know, maybe you count a couple of the fishing or the farming villages along the way, and then they visit Marsh, and then they end up taking the river, and they continue to the old capital. because that's the direction that seemingly interests them. That could end up being 3. So 1 is kind of this more like rural farming strip. You know, a couple interesting things to see, some landmarks along the way. That could be 1. This this marshy sort of city on stilts. You know, if you've played Resident Evil 5, it's the like the swamp village of people that's sort of built up over the swamp. This would be 2, and then the old capital could be 3. So a milestone could also be visit 3 other major locales. And if we want to throw a rider of and undergo a side quest in each. There we go. And so ultimately that would earn a level, even if it came on the heels of you know, completing the outdoor dungeon, but maybe they were in Marsh and someone said, "Oh, I really need, I don't know, I'm trying to repair this old statue that we rose up out of the muck of the swamp." You know, there's all sorts of like old broken statues in the dunes. Can you find a statue head and bring it back? Because it would match the statue we've raised up out of the muck. And so you complete the dungeon. On the way back, you find a statue head. You can get the milestone there, and because this is already a culmination, or it contributes to the culmination if this isn't the 3rd, then you're building story and you're building exposure to the world, and also learning more about things. And because you're I don't want to say forcing, but because you're definitely encouraging interaction with the locals, you know that as a DM you have plenty of opportunities to drop hints at different locations, even if it's the same hint you would have delivered in Risha that you're now delivering in Upper Lomosh. It's still the opportunity to drop that clue through another character. I don't know what happened, but I'm writing finally. Awesome, Black Wolf. Oh, did I crash again? I didn't even notice if I crashed. I don't have a notification, and obviously I look at my internet flashing lights and it looks like they're working. Well, shoot. I'm sorry that Twitch is being twitchy. I was down for a second. Yeah, it's got to be something on Twitch's end then. I wish I could tell you more. It's back up now. So I'm sure I'll get a notification that I'm streaming, even though I'm streaming. And then finally something else here. You know, this could be a big cultural milestone. This could be something as, you know, if you want to ensure that there's going to be some sort of combat. It could still be relevant in story, but they have to put down one of the 5 bandit kings. Or they have to put down Jing, the king of bandits. An anime reference. You know, so the bandits can live anywhere in the wastes. So as a milestone, it can float, because if the characters love the portrayal of the old capital here, and they love the fact there's all the fresh water and there's the seaport and the mountains, and you know, it doesn't have the great library, but there's sources here, there's the desert, and this becomes their de facto base of operations. Well, maybe it just so happens that the Bandit King operates in this part of the desert. So it is an adventure, and they're still gonna have to meet people along the way, but it can be here, and you're not forcing it to be between Risha and Findu, because something like that could exist anywhere. And the bandits can be, because the bandits are the ones, by the way, who chased our NPC turned villain and our NPC friend turning into a humanoid beholder into the ruins. And so by interacting with that tribe, you know, we didn't even have to say defeat. Interact with the, I don't know, we can call them the, if we want to make them like whirling dervishes, or kind of base it in something in real life here, we'll call them the Sun Ripple Dervishes. Bandits, nomads. They're going to get information that could even lead them back to the collapsed temple. Now, is that going to count as a dungeon? It could. But the dungeon itself isn't a milestone just because it's a dungeon. The dungeon is a part of this chapter in the story, which is a milestone that is going to reveal the information about what was here. What does it indicate? What did the villain and the NPC each see as they were running from the sun-rippled dervishes? And by completing the interaction, which includes them saying, if you want to know what happened, you go there and you bring back proof, because our religion doesn't allow us to go into ruins. And you also use that as a roundabout way of saying that they don't know what happened, but they do know that something powerful is what laid low the cities. And that's why they don't live in the cities. They live in the wastes. They live in the open. Because this band of dervishes, bandits, nomads, gypsies, whatever you want to call them, they don't have the specifics, but they know that something happened in the past that has now turned into a cultural norm, a superstition, something that isn't going to give the entire clue about what happened, but enough that it can cause the PCs to question what's going on. Because there are enough people that live in the wastes that, you know what, if you grew up in the cities on the coast or even on the interior, you know, you look at them as the country bumpkins, right? They're gypsies. They just travel around. No morals, you know, they just rut in the middle of the desert. They throw their babies at you and run away or whatever, you know. They put curses on you, or they'll be the ones to come and ransack your property. And so you think, oh, they're primitives and whatever they believe is dumb. Well, it would turn out, if the PCs don't know it at the time, that there's a grain of truth inside that interaction with this roaming tribe. And you can even go back and say that if you do have nomads, you can put the sun ripples are you can have them, it could be a random encounter if you want. You can put them on that chart, and or you can say that they are by Findu here, and then it would take them maybe 12 days to cross the desert, and maybe they're immune from the holidays because they have a different set of beliefs. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They are outside of Marsh. And then they stay there for a couple days doing whatever, raiding or trading or whatever. Maybe they avoid the capital and then they actually go. So if the PCs are in the Lomosh dunes, you know, for whatever reason they're going, maybe because they do scavenge. Maybe it's a part of their pilgrimage to remember why they don't stay in one place too long, because it'll get destroyed. So then they're in the dunes. And they're in the dunes for a couple days while they travel, and then they cut over to the Wellwater Mountains, and so you can see that along the timeline you could track them as well, or you can just have them be possible encounters, if not the entirety of the tribe or the core of it. Maybe the core of the tribe travels on this predetermined path over time, but you can find raider bands, you can find scouts, you can find envoys, that kind of a thing. All right, so Orc says my character's official title is the Archmage of Foreign Intelligence. Oh, all right, so instead of the CIA, it's the AFI. Like someone who goes around to other places and spies, observes the figure and what's up. I have a villain in my story who's referred to as the greatest monster. It's not an official title, but everyone who talks about him says, quote, he was the greatest monster to blot the history books and things like that. Hey, and there's my official announcement, everyone, that I am now live streaming Dungeons and Dragons campaign/milestone planning. New players and questions welcome. Yay! I'm live, everyone. Hey, Bombard, welcome. I played as a player in a game on Roll20. It wasn't exactly pirates, but it was a nautical adventure, and my enemy was a foreign nation. So I harassed slaver ships and warships from that country. The enemy ships had tokens on the map and would travel like we did and would adjust course when they heard news of us. The tokens were in the GM layer, so only the DM could see them. Oh, yeah, exactly, Bombard. So a spreadsheet like this would be something similar if we were playing in a heads-up game, right? We know what's going to happen when. In the desert, along the river, we're tracking the holidays. And so as the in-game days go by, all we have to do is look across and we can see what is happening in the world on that day. And if we need to make a special consideration, so for example, the party, you never expected to see this coming, but the party decided to murk their friend who's slowly transforming into a humanoid beholder. Well, that could change things. Now, it's not going to stop the sandstorm or the flash flood. It's not going to stop the work days and holidays, and it's not going to stop the bandits roaming around the wastes. But with that exception, you can now go through and determine, all right, so how would the villain react if suddenly his potential mate in this ritual is destroyed and the eye is in the clutches of the PCs? Suddenly, then we go into hunting mode, and this villain brings all of the resources available to hunt down the PCs. Let's say the PCs take the eye back to the ocean and throw it in there. You know, they spend 3 days, they sail out, they fight off pirates and whatever, sharks, anything that's out there. They throw it in the sea and they sail back. That could buy some more time. However, that's not going to stop this this possessed villain who has this need to recreate, to rebirth this weapon that was made in the past. And given the aberrant nature, you know, the magical nature, what's stopping this character from just, you know, granting himself water breathing and diving down for it? Or the mystical nature of legendary artifacts, that it's going to wash up on shore and some little kid in a fishing village, you know, between Risha and Findu, is going to find it, and suddenly the eye influences the kid, takes the kid over. And so now, not only did they kill their friend, thinking that they helped, and then they drop the eye in the ocean. Now, we don't tell them this, but we can think of this as a backup plan as DMs. But now this poor kid is doomed to be corrupted by the eye, and to finally, in this ritual, rebirth this ancient weapon of war, who is revered in today's society by all but these like fringe bandits as a god, because they don't know what actually happened. They just see the power.
You got what I want. The rest goes to TwitchCon minus.
Oh my goodness. Coffee Cat. Dude. I'm gonna have to calculate what that is. Trustaflumph, pulled out of lurking mode, is left flumphless. Good golly. So yes, Coffee Cat did send over a list of a couple things, a couple minis for the collection, and so I'm gonna whip it up, and we'll see what's left over, and I'm gonna apply that to the March goal. My goodness, thank you so much, Coffee. It means a lot to me, on so many levels. I know I repeat myself, but it does. The fact that you're adopting these minis, you're going to give them a good home. The fact that they can inspire you, because every time I send a shipment out, in my heart, I'm delighted, because now I imagine you all kind of like Dark Helmet and Spaceballs, right? No, no, sir, I didn't catch you playing with your dolls. Good. But I love imagining you all, the smirk on your face as you like take a dragon out and you set it on the table, and everyone else is like, they're like, how are we gonna deal with this? Or the fact that they're looking at your collection of minis and like, whoa, that's so cool. It brings joy to my heart, because you're happy, your friends are happy, we're having fun, you've supported the channel, and everyone wins. Everyone wins in that case. And it's absolutely delightful to me. So thank you very much, Coffee. I get your business every time, Coffee. Even if I get it every time, I will continue to earn your business every time. If I ever seemingly treat you or someone else as by default I just get your business, I do not want you to do business with me. I have to earn your business. That's very important for me in my heart. Because if I ever stop doing that, then that means I've stopped caring. And I've lost my passion for this. And, it doesn't mean I've turned sour into a bad guy, but maybe I need to take a break. Maybe it's evidence that I've kind of burnt out and I need to step back. And you act as a break or a check on me, like, well, hey, Matt, just take a couple weeks off, man. I think you're kind of, you're getting frazzled or whatever. But I hope that I earn your all's business, whether it's one bit, 100 bits, or a large order like what Coffee Cat placed through a donation. I never want to stop earning that business. Well, I think we have then the basis for our milestones. As a DM, there's a lot here that we can go and fill in. We could create an outline and put subpoints about they need to make sure that they find out, whether they learn it here, and here, whether they learn it here, and from, I'm willing to say, if they encounter the 17 to 19 on my chart at sea by some like old wizened some turtles, right? Turtle people that have some knowledge bombs to drop on them, and it was a chance encounter. Maybe that can count. So, but we know that ultimately there's some information we want to weave in. It's going to get to the party one way or the other. But because we've built everything organically, step by step. Now, as a DM, we built the characters, so that gives us some inspiration. But let's pretend we didn't, and we only use our, that's the NPCs. Here we go, and we only use our concept for the region and then the prompting, the synopsis of what our players handed us for their character sheets. Because we took our time and we built things step by step, we're way more familiar. We can improvise. We have confidence. We don't need to run an overly complicated story because we know where things are. We know where things are at. We know that there's a flowing sense of time, and we know that ultimately there are certain pieces of information we are going to get to our players in some form or fashion. It's not that the players can't lose the game. You know, they could die in a combat, or they can just, you know, let this beholder weapon godling thing be reborn and destroy Lomosh. Again, they could have Lomosh behind them on a sailing vessel, and they just say, see ya, and they bug out. I had something similar like that happen at the end of my first 5th edition campaign. We're actually going over that campaign primer. We were going over that campaign primer yesterday as the first example of what a campaign primer can be. At the end of the campaign, the players chose something I never suspected they would, and that was to effectively peace out of there and let the factions and everything war it out, because they created their own little like arc, like their own little protected area that they broke away, and they took important people with them. I never considered that, but it made sense. So I wasn't really prepared to just, I guess, auto-generate the end of the campaign myself, but the player characters got exactly what they wanted. And then when it was time to start the second 5th edition campaign, I had to sit down and do some thinking. So without their direct intercession, how would this play out? Which faction could ultimately win? And what would that mean? What would that do to the floating island of Veloz, as it would descend very quickly to the actual, you know, ocean/planet of Veloz that was beneath it? And so when we started the second campaign, that I didn't tell them anything, because they'd have to figure out what happened based on the clues in the second campaign. But I had no problem letting them just bug out of there, right? They sheltered up, they formed they cloistered, they detached themselves in a very literal sense from the war that was taking place, and they kind of went to go start their own colony in the old world. They went to just try and find a better life that wasn't fraught with this kind of war intention. Hey, all right, there you go. Lysaria, you agree with me about earning business? Well, thank you for doing so. And Lysaria, if whether you're a customer or you're in business yourself, I appreciate that agreement, and realizing that for someone who, you know, isn't just, you know, here for bits and for rewards for broadcasting, but who does, you know, who provides these other services, goods or services through Twitch, that earning it, especially the conversation, the trust, the community. You all aren't just spending money with me, you're spending time. I'm competing with every other Twitch channel that's out there, and yet here you are, you're choosing to spend your time and money here. I darn well respect that. And if it ever seems like I'm not, you got to tell me and knock some sense into me. But Lysaria, thank you very much for that compliment. And so here we go. By level 10, right? If we go with what Ivlon's instincts were for this, we start at level 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we have our great climax against this bioweapon godling beholder that was birthed from the tragedy, the tragic loss of the friend of everyone in the party NPC, and even the comeuppance. Maybe it's bittersweet that this villain who's been causing problems died in the birthing process. And so you have just this bitter mix, but now you have a job to do, and it's a race against time as this godling leaves this last clue in the dunes to go north to this other refurbished temple that's just waiting for it to arrive. All because of the hubris of the Dragonborn. You know, kind of confirming the humans, but the humans have to work with the Dragonborn now, setting that bitterness aside to try and, address the situation. We have this big fight. The party, the place is surrounded by these demons or whatever that are coming into existence because of the liminality between the planes is falling, as was a precursor in the outdoor dungeon, by the way. So our players would have seen something like this before the climax. So this almost be like the Eclipse sacrifice in Berserk. So, you have this ziggurat. Everyone's having to get together, setting aside old grudges. They're fighting all this stuff that's happening as this old war is raging. The ghosts of the desert are rising up because everything's about ready to repeat. And they continue fighting and rolling up north, over, through the dunes, over the river, and through the woods to Grandmother's Temple we go. And that's when everyone here in Lomosh, no matter their differences, their religious differences, historical, their racial, geographical, whatever, have to set it aside because history's darn well getting to repeat itself and is going to be the pestle for the lower Lomosh Peninsula's mortar. And it's up to the party to climb that ziggurat, to climb that pyramid, and face off against that Eye of Providence. And oh, what an ominous thing it is in the big climax to the story. And when they're done, they're going to be the big damn heroes of Lomosh. And should this party want to continue with their characters from level 11 onwards, everyone will know their name. They'll be the ones at the top of the temple. They might even be hated, because cults, or even just really fervent followers of the Eye, saw them slay the rebirth of the god, that they all wanted to come back. Of course, what are, thousands of NPCs who are, kind of counter. They weren't there, they didn't put the clues together, but they see the party destroy their godling. What's that going to do for levels 11, 12, 13? Are they going to be lauded as heroes? Are they going to receive death threats? Both? Will we pick up, I don't know, at level 12? You just give them a freebie. Level 11 and 11, I guess really would be the freebie, is spent, you get some training, you polish yourself up. And then we take back up at level 12 where you have taken residence in a cloistered neighborhood in the capital because so many people hate you. And also so many people love you that as a force, there's almost this civil war that's going to brew because you saved everyone. Oh my goodness. That definitely sets up for the next adventure arc or the next campaign arc. And whatever happens to try and bring civility and unity, maybe that ends around level 17 because 17 through 20 is your epic levels in 5th edition. Your epic level adventurers, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Had a unique D&D experience today, says Bombard. I am the DM for a Roll20 game for my son and his friends. Today we had our first player death. Reduced them all to tears. It's a Curse of Strahd game and the player died to traps. Can't be more specific without spoilers, sadly. If it's taking place inside a large stone building, I think I get the idea. But you know what, Bombard? It's excellent that they had such an emotional attachment to that character. I mean, hopefully it wasn't a player death. It was a character death, but I get what you're saying. That if it broke them down and made them pause, my character's dead. And especially in Barovia, there's, no amount of clapping is going to bring you back from the mist. You might be able to get to see your friend one last time as their face kind of like presses out of the fog before it being sucked back in. A 4-story building, yes. Okay. character death. She was the bard and fangirl to my son's character. Oh. But could you use that as a learning lesson, though, at the table? Like, did you stop and you know, we sort of paid respects, you know, in and out of character, we stopped, had a moment, discussed it, about what happened, and then how to continue? Your son's playing an egocentric ASMR paladin. Yeah, Coffee Cat, you're an emotion hunter. Yeah, you live for those moments, for the highs and the lows, and you ride them all out the same. And I'm sorry, Lasara, I missed your comment. You're very welcome. I work in the catering business, especially with catering, right? Oh yeah. I totally get it, Lasaria. And thank you for sharing that little bit of, you know, this is my background, this is who I am, and this is why I said what I did. I love picking up these little tidbits, because as I was saying earlier in the broadcast, none of us can know everything. We can't work all jobs, get all certifications and degrees and documents. And so especially when we get together for storytelling, Lasaria, I know a little bit about food and food prep, you know, in small batches, let alone for whatever you do, 200-person wedding parties. That is a whole other level of coordination, logistics, adjusting the recipes, which is chemistry, if you break down what food prep is. You know, you can't necessarily always scale, well, if I can make one cake that serves 8 people with, you know, 2 eggs or whatever, that I can just multiply it straight up to make a cake that can feed 200 people with, you know, with just the straight up multiplication. I think I used wrong numbers to make it more complicated on myself, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So when we get to a point, Lasaria, when we're exploring characters, when we're trying to make, we're wearing our PC hats, or we're wearing our DM hats and making a story, someone like you can come in and say, you know what, I do this for a living, and this is how I would plan a banquet to welcome, how actually, Lasaria, tell me this. In this capital city filled with money and trade and ingredients, our heroes have defeated the big bad evil guy. And we're drawing on inspiration from the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa, specifically Egypt. How would you plan? Well, a hero's feast is a magic spell, but even if we're saying the non-magical version, how would you plan or present a hero's feast for everyone back in the capital city to properly reward them? Never seen my son cry. Emotional stuff makes him avoid things. You know what, though? Oh, it feels good sometimes to get it out, though. My son asked to change his ASMR subtype and Paladin Oath to account for the event. Oh, Bombard, so he's getting into this. You know, he's making it personal. He's going to carry this weight with him. That sounds that's really good. Rocked his character so much to change his path. Oh, man. Hey, Farfel, welcome. I had a TPK in Curse of Strahd when I ran it. The player that was leading everyone ignored all the warning signs before going into a certain marsh, and they were not high enough level for it. Oh. He was Protector, ASMR, and Devotion Oath, wants Scourge and Vengeance now. And so I presume you're allowing that to reflect this new, right? Trustaflum says, rip me. Oof, Farfel. Trustaflum wiggles deadfully. Nah, it wasn't Farfel's fault. It was definitely ours. Says an anonymous Curse of Strahd player. Just used Strahd to bring them back because he wasn't done with them as his playthings. That's fair. Raises dead on Flump again. Stop reading. Or stop deading. Okay, gotcha. Oh, he's all in. I'm allowing it. Bombard. Oh, and Bombard, what you said is another aspect why I love this hobby so much, in storytelling. Especially storytelling. Storytelling bridges the generational gap. that we have between parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, veterans of wars, and rookies who just signed up, right? Can still tell stories. Or people who've worked in auto plants that talk to insurance agents. All of these socioeconomic, all of these demographic gaps that separate us from each other are bridged in meaningful fashion through the medium of storytelling. And the bonds that form, when I see, well, I'll use Magic the Gathering as an example. If I see a 45-year-old player sitting across from a 15-year-old player at Friday Night Magic, and they're treating each other as peers, as equals, as honored combatants across the table, and not, oh, you're some dumb kid. Oh, well, what do you know, old man? That, I don't know the feeling. I mean, I know the feeling. I don't know the word. It's satisfying, but it's so much more than that. It's humanity. It is raw, on display humanity. And it's not even a fanciful what we could be. I mean, we always hope for more of it. But seeing it happen and happen so often, it is who we are. It is a product of our species. That is our special gift. If you want to say scientific and evolution, fine. If you want to say this is our divine gift as a created species, fine. That doesn't change the fact that it's there. That's why I'm passionate about this stuff. And why I love doing this. Professionally in a physical sense and spending time here with you all. Yes, I'm talking to you. Even if you have your back to your monitor because you're painting a mini or you're working on a document, I'm waggling my finger at you. That's why I love this. This is humanity on display. Lasaria says, well, I would first look over past customer orders. If I have the logs and see what's very popular in times of celebration. If I don't have the logs, I advise about it. Maybe include an order survey voting policy. I would then check my workers' time frame to see how much supplies and who I'm working with and compare it to the research, then be able to produce their feast. Feasts on that scale normally are prepared for 2 to 3 days in advance, and supplies would have been gathered based on the scale. See, this is stuff that would have been, woo, I would have just described it as, oh yeah, you come back and you know, as far as I know, everyone in the royal kitchen worked really hard for a day to create this gigantic, like, feast for heroes and you know, the people who stepped up and were brave in this turmoil. But Lysaria is drawing on her. From the name I'm presuming, but correct me if I'm wrong. But Lysaria is drawing on her experience to make this detailed and unique and to draw us into the world, so that, especially when we're talking about a time frame, right? Here we have feast prep. and suddenly, you know, we get to order from the king. Then it's going to take like 2 to 3 days to call in orders, or then it's research, orders. Then it's like 2 to 3 days for delivery, prep, 2 to 3 days for prep. Then finally the feast. And here we are, from the day of order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days before we have our hero's feast. And this could be an adventure in and of itself. You want to go looking for supplies, make trade routes, you want to go hunt down the monsters that are going to become the roast beast in the feast? Not in the least. I love this hobby so much. Coffee, I absolutely agree. Bombard talked to the deceased. She was okay with death and wanted a new character, but I offered her to play a ghost if she wanted to. Bombard, that is a great example of how to handle those situations in a respectful manner and in a manner that is teaching a lesson without seeming like you're preaching or being heavy-handed about something. Elam Dillon, thank you very much for the follow. Happy lurking to you, but you know you're always welcome to join the chat if you'd like. I was going to message you the backstory I came up with, but involves some spoilers from campaign 2. Oh, because you're talking to Black Wolf, Orc. That's fine, Orc. Orc, I've been reading, and I'm glad that you are getting some good focused advice, and this is really pumping you up to continue to play this character. Okay, Warforged Druid transforms into a bear. Would they be a Warforged bear? Cosmetically, maybe they look like it. Really up to you and the DM. You could suggest it. But if they're going natural, then, you know, because Warforged have wood bits and maybe, you know, to look like they have hair, it's fur. So maybe it grows out. And they look like a normal bear. Right? I mean, people don't look like bears. You know, we don't have similar bear snouts or teeth or hair. Yet we grow, you know, we grow all this other stuff. So why couldn't a Warforged? Tread, I think that should be an option, but I wouldn't have mechanical benefits. But you would get to make Autobot sounds. Dun 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 dun. Trust a Flump, I married a ghost in Strahd. It was weird. That's a story. My goodness. Well, Flump, if you want to tell it, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to get up and take another break, everyone. I'm going to go get maybe a nice big pitcher of ice water. Sounds pretty good. And I would love to hear this story, but you know what? We put in a lot of work. We did a lot of fun back and forth consultation planning. And we have an amazing product to show for it. And all of you, I hope, feel happy and proud for being a part of it. Whether you just watched and lurked, whether you just came in tonight and you followed because you like what we're doing here, or you've been here for all 2 weeks we've been building this campaign and this thought, or you've been here for a year. I appreciate you all, and I'm very thankful for this interaction. Before I take a break here, Lysaria says, lastly, I would change the environment of my establishment so that it fits the reason for the celebration, as well as think up ideas to keep people here rather than just eat my food, and maybe having speeches from the party and some local gaming access because not everyone will eat a lot. I would not have thought of that, Lysaria. All the fun party games and, you know, or to even say that, yeah, there would be speeches, or there would be, or, you know, you could come up with a unique custom that maybe I never thought about. But if you are a player character and you have this background in culinary tools or party planning or whatever, you could, as a player character, suggest this to me as the DM and say, if I can get involved, this is how I do it. And suddenly, I as the DMs go, you know what? This is your field of expertise. I know you're involved in this, and it's not like, you know, it's, what are you going to do? Like hack the game by putting on a feast in your honor for beating the game? And so I could hand over the reins of control or influence to you as the player character, because this is your, pardon the pun, this is your bread and butter, Lysaria. And now the speech falls to you, or the catering or whatever, and you kind of give out a fun little side mission, right? You have the sage character write the speech because he's supposedly really good at that, and so on and so forth. And now the end game is in your hands, but you're all specialties at this, in or out of character. And it makes the story that much closer to home, that much more real. All right, I'll be back shortly, everyone.